All right, everybody. So thank you guys for joining us for the Marketing Club meeting today. So we're going to start. This is Clint Sammons. He's the brand manager of Diamond Sports at Mizuno USA, which is a Japanese-based sporting goods company with U.S. headquarters in the Metro Atlanta area. So he's an Atlanta native who played collegiate baseball at UGA and had a 9-year career in professional baseball. Clint has utilized the core principles he learned from athletics in tandem with his education to move through the levels at Mizuno in product and marketing over the last 4 years. His positions at Mizuno have included managing a number of product categories across the division, as well as his current role as brand manager, where he is responsible for overseeing the entire business, marketing, and promotion strategies for the baseball and softball division. And you can just go ahead and get started.
Well done.
Thank you.
I write well about myself, I guess. So, great to be here, obviously. This, as I just mentioned a second ago, it's actually only my second time on campus. So, first one was graduation. So it's always good to be back down. So, for any of you guys who don't know, Dr. Wilson is my wife's aunt, so I do have a kind of a family connection down here as well, which is part of the reason that I ended up here, along with trying to stay within the university system of Georgia when I went back to school to finish my degree after leaving Georgia. So she gave you just a little background on me, but just to kind of explain how I got to where I did. So did grow up in the Atlanta area. Had a chance to go and play baseball at Georgia on a baseball scholarship, which was obviously a huge dream for me and a great thing. Was fortunate enough to start there 3 years, all 3 years that I was there. And then fortunate enough to be drafted by the Braves after my junior year, and really go kind of chase a dream that I'd had for a lot of my life and had put a lot of work into. So I made the decision to leave school. Was drafted by the Atlanta Braves. Spent my first 7 seasons with the Braves. Parts of 3 of those actually with the major league team, in 07 through 09. So certainly something that I carry a lot of pride in, and I'm always happy to talk about whenever anybody wants to bring it up. But had flipped over, spent my last 2 years in Miami with the Marlins, which really ended up in 2 knee surgeries in back-to-back years, which pretty much ended my career. But as a player, I wore Mizuno. So that's kind of where my connection happened. I had been in connection with the promotions director over the course of my career, obviously wearing the gear, and had met a few people in the office and coming in and out, being in Atlanta and us being based in Atlanta. So, kept those connections, kept those contacts. When I finished up playing, I actually took a job that was still in baseball, running all the catching position and development with the Marlins for a year, but was on the road a lot. I think I traveled about 165 days that year, which just wasn't really in the cards for me anymore after being done with playing, because certainly playing keeps you on the road a lot, traveling all over the place, and was really away from home a good 8 or 9 months out of the year, which is pretty wild. So the pot of gold not there as much anymore. I decided to, had a chance, got a call to come in and interview about a product job. So my first role at Mizuno was as an assistant business unit manager, which essentially my job was to run 3 different product categories within our baseball and softball division. So those first 3 categories, not that it matters, because I can tell you that product is just product. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, but was protective. So like catcher's gear, batters helmets, anything that protects you on the field, bags, so all of our sport bags that we sold on the baseball side as well as the volleyball side, which we have at Mizuno, which I'll touch on, and accessories. So anything that just, glove accessories, any socks, wristbands, all that little bit of junk that you sell, to accessorize everything else that we do. So Mizuno, as she mentioned, is a Japanese-based sporting goods company. It's been open since 1906. A little sports shop that opened in Osaka, Japan, that sold uniforms actually to start, and then started selling baseball gloves just a few years later, which has kind of come to be known as sort of our trademark item and sort of what we've done the longest and what we're most proud of for sure. So U.S. headquarters started in San Francisco actually back in the early 80s. They were running a really, really small office, which was essentially just kind of a sales office in San Francisco, and then as they decided to expand it here in the U.S., they moved it to Norcross, Georgia, which is just about 20 minutes north of Buckhead, if you guys are familiar with Atlanta at all, kind of northeast of Buckhead. So right now that's since I think going around about 35 years now. Our U.S. headquarters has been based in Norcross. As a company in the U.S., we're a wholly owned subsidiary in the U.S. of Mizuno Corporation in Japan. So we're we're privately run in the U.S. We are not publicly traded. We are publicly traded in Japan on their stock market. So from a numbers standpoint and that kind of thing, everything's very private in the U.S. because we have to report all that back up into Japan, where they report it publicly into their stock market. So in the U.S. Specifically, we are in baseball and softball, as I mentioned. So we've got 9 categories. That actually includes soccer footwear that we do on a very small scale in the U.S., but a much bigger scale across Europe and Asia. We do running footwear and apparel. So we do running shoes, very high-end, typically performance like running shoes, not your sort of mainstream Nike Free type running shoe that you might see, but much more built and designed for long distance running and people that run a really good bit. So some of you may have seen our shoes out in the market at times for sure. Typically in the smaller specialty type stores is where you're going to see us there. We do volleyball, so we do volleyball apparel and footwear as well as accessories on that side. Volleyball is probably one of our biggest market share sports, actually, if any of you guys played volleyball or did growing up. We have a very, very good market share there, even though we are getting attacked a little bit now with Nike trying to enter in it a little bit bigger than where they've been in the past. And then we do golf. So we do golf clubs, irons, drivers, wedges, as well as golf bags and golf accessories as well. So that's the categories in which we compete in the U.S. Now, abroad, they do tennis, soccer, they get into rugby, a lot of different sports that are a little bit maybe more native to the different spots that we're located around the world. And then corporately in Japan and within Japan and Asia, we're in just about everything up to school uniforms. So we're almost more like Nike and Under Armour in Japan than we are definitely here. We're much more specialized here in the U.S. Than what our parent company is in Japan. So any questions there? So you guys feel free to interrupt me. I don't have to make this like a formal presentation, so we can make it as conversational as you want. So that's kind of our company in a nutshell. So sporting goods industry has been pretty volatile. I don't know how much you guys have paid attention to it over the course of the last few years, but it's been pretty interesting and been a huge learning experience for me, which I'll certainly we'll touch on here at some point. So my first job was as an assistant business unit manager. So basically the job was to run all aspects of the product category. So initially, you think about really the 4 Ps of marketing, which I won't put anybody on the spot, but product, price, place, promotion, right? So that really plays into everything that you do within business. And that's one thing that I think I found, and one thing I did want to make sure that I mentioned tonight is just no matter what your major is, like you don't ever pigeonhole yourself into thinking because I'm a marketing major, I have to work in the marketing department of a company, because really the things that you're going to learn and just even like the selling course, right? All these different things, it gives you a huge background in business, and you're going to end up doing a lot of different things no matter what role you get into. But really one of the most important parts to me of the marketing side is product. Product is king, in my opinion. Some people would maybe debate that, but your marketing side are things you can promote only so much. Your product has to meet those expectations of the consumer. It's got to be relevant to the consumer. So really it all kind of starts with product or service, right? So no matter what you're selling, every company that gets started is selling something, right? So even a Facebook that is free to all of us, they're selling advertisements to people like me, right? Because I want to reach you, because I need you to buy my baseball gloves or my softball gloves, right? So everybody's selling something, and that's certainly something to definitely understand. So as the product manager, really the first and foremost job is to manage the line structure, right? So in every category in which you manage, there's an assortment of products that you have to be able to take a look at, to analyze, to understand the sales numbers, by SKU, by style, by series, and be able to look and see trends as you're moving out, as something comes into the market and as it lives, right? So typically you're going to see that demand curve. It spikes as you enter it, as you take it to market, it flattens out for a while, and then as it starts to ebb off, you've got to be ready with something else to refresh it, right? And certain things have different life cycles than others. Typically in the baseball and softball world, things live about 2 to 3 years. So we try to refresh or update things every 2 to 3 years. So within that, you've got to really manage the line structure to make sure that you're not flipping your entire line over and updating it all at the same time, right? So typically, the way that we operate is we try to update our product assortment, probably a third of the assortment every year, right? So then it just kind of stays on that cycle with some things will jump ahead, some things will stay in the line longer, just depending on what the business climate is and how things are selling. Certain things tend to sell longer than, and better longer than others. So that it really takes, I think, some analytical skills and really understanding that side to set that line structure. So then once you would set the line structure, the next part would be to create product briefs for the products that you need to update or the new products maybe that you see in the market. So really important on the product side, if you're ever managing a product category, is to be out in the market, understand what's going on, be online, be looking at what your competitors are doing, right, and really understand that and try to get ahead or at least be on trend with the things that are happening. So I'm fairly lucky in the sporting goods industry. The trends are not as big as you would see like in fashion apparel or shoes and that kind of thing. Those things are flipping all the time, except changing 2 and 3 times a season. But you've always got to be out in the market. You've got to understand the business, and the only way that you can really understand the business is to get out and see what other people are doing. So that's a very, very important part, and then that allows you to, with our process of, so we create a product brief which says, I need to make this product at this price. It needs to cost this so that I can make my margin dollars that I have to make, right? And then generally, with what my competitors are doing or something else, technology that we may know, it's got to have these features and benefits that we have to get to and keep it at this cost, right? Which is a great challenge, but it's a fun challenge to try to create things that really enhance the value for the consumer, but keep your costs as low as you can so you can make more money, so you can be more profitable.
Is that how y'all test things through, y'all don't come up with an actual product. You come out with a description of what you want to sell, the price you want to sell it, and then you test that?
Yeah, happens a lot. Happens a lot that way. So, a lot of things, at least within our line structures, a lot of it is refreshing product, right? So you still need if you have a $100 baseball glove, you still need a $100 baseball glove. But then what can we do to either squeeze more money out of that $100 glove for us, or while not giving up value to the consumer and understanding that. So that's certainly a big part of it. And then getting out and saying, okay, well, this, we noticed that this competitor has now started using an upgraded leather. How are they doing that, right? So it feels better than ours does. So then we can go to our factories, we can go to the tanneries, and we can say, we need to make this too, right? And so a lot of that for us, once we create those briefs, is we have counterparts in Japan that are specifically, their specific job is to work with us in the U.S. and help us make that product because they're closer to the factory. It's where a lot of our engineers and those types reside. So it really is important that those briefs are specific, as specific as they can be, to help us, really move forward with those kind of things. So that's certainly a big part of that job and what I did. So really, my first 2 jobs at Mizuno were a lot the same. One was just a little bit more challenging than the other. And when I got promoted a year and a half or 2 years ago, whenever it was. But so once you got that line set, everything. So the next part is controlling the inventory. All right. So as a product manager, that was part of my job as well. So working with supply chain to manage our buys, make sure that we had the right amount of inventory coming in, that it was matching the forecasted number of sales, and that we were bringing in the right mix. So not only did the number or the amount of inventory we were bringing in make sense, but also was it the right mix? Was it the right styles that we were bringing in the most of that we thought we were going to sell the most of? So a lot of that is, as you'll find as you get into business, is history is typically a good indicator of how things will perform. And so it's really, really important to learn how to analyze what things have done in the past and really use that as a gauge, unless you know something is going to make it better, right? If you can really get behind something because you've found a patented technology or something that you can really get behind, the biggest part of managing inventory is really paying attention to history, and really on a consistent basis, watching it, working in tandem with, most companies that at least are sourcing product like we do have a full supply chain department, people that are assigned to a specific category or categories, and it's their job to do that and watch that and help you make the buys, and really you're just really making the decisions. So then along with that, additionally was the sort of the financial aspect of things. So managing the sales forecast on a monthly basis, to make sure that we're staying on target. So, we hit sales plans for a year, and you have to break those up by month. Understanding really history there again is a great driver of how you will know what things are going to do. And then so you have a revenue number, you have a margin number, and the margin number sometimes becomes the more important one because that's how profitable you are. So, I would say that even speaking to, jump around here a little bit, but, the sporting goods industry has been pretty tough the last few years. And so a lot of our focus has not been as much on how can we grow the revenue as much as how can we grow the margin, and how can we grow the profitability of the company. And so there's, certainly that creates its own challenges to say that if we know that if a store is closing down and we're going to take a hit on our sales number, how can we make sure that we maintain the profitability through better sourcing, through better sales programs, whatever it might be that are set up.
You feel like when that happens, you have fewer new products entering the market? Well, when you hit the stages, we're going to worry more about margin than revenue.
Sure.
Is that so? Just to tell my classes, he's basically telling you exactly what the book tells you in a applied way. Remember he first talked about because now they want more cash cows, because they said, you know what, we got to worry about profit for a while. Earlier when they were expanding, they wanted more stars because they wanted more things to enter the workplace. When he talked about new product development, he basically told the story of how in all the 7 steps to develop a new product, they used to actually make a product and then make the product and see if it worked, and they found out that's not very efficient. What we got to do is create an image of the product that's not tangible, but it's just, you put it in people's mind, and then if it passes that, then make a tangible product. So it's sort of exciting. We didn't plan on this in the beginning for him to say what exactly y'all are learning in marketing. But sorry for the interruption.
Not at all. I mean, I think that's why it's good to come down here, because it really does. I mean, you read it in the book and you pay attention to it, right? But then you don't realize that then all of a sudden you get slapped in the face and that you have to apply it, and it's right there that I think you can pull from. So, yeah, I mean, I think to your point, so, as the sporting goods industry as a whole, so, it's really consolidated a lot as far as retail, the retail landscape.
Matured. Would you say it's matured too?
For sure, definitely. So, but we've lost, the Sports Authority closed down a few years ago, and hurt a lot of people, including us, certainly, because we had a lot of product in there. You've had regional, I mean, it's been pretty much every year for the last 3 years, there's been at least 2 or 3, whether they be big box or sort of regional big box retailers, mom and pop shops that have gone out of business. And what that has done is created this smaller marketplace overall, that there's still the same amount of fighters in the ring from a manufacturer standpoint. So now it's just turned into a bloodbath in a lot of ways of everybody's going to the same places and trying to sell their stuff in. And then in turn, what that's done is it's put too much product in the market, because when they close down, a lot of that product doesn't necessarily get liquidated right away. So it comes back to the manufacturer. We end up taking it back, and then we have to close it out at a lower price. And so it ends up just flooding the market with too much product. Happened big time in the footwear side when Sports Authority went out of business, because Under Armour was in big with them. Certainly Nike was in big with them, and all of a sudden they had all this footwear, and they were already bringing stuff out on the back end of it that was supposed to take its place. And so now there's just all this stuff that was out there, and really gave a lot of fuel to all the different online marketplaces that have really started to gain ground. So certainly the behemoth in the room is Amazon, and that is, personally from our company standpoint, where we're running to, which I think we're probably a few years behind on them personally. It was, I think, with our Japanese culture and then sort of them being in Asia and very conservative really by nature and kind of how they operate, they did not think that us going to Amazon a few years ago full bore was the best idea. They felt like we should still kind of stay in where we had been playing, and a few people probably beat us to it, but not everybody, thankfully. I think the sporting goods side has probably been one of the last to go that way, but you know, it's as people close out, they still have to buy some. So people still have to buy stuff somewhere, right? And when you look, and there's really Dick's Sporting Goods, and there's Academy Sports, who is up and down and really not doing that great, and really Dick's Sporting Goods not doing that well either. And so to kind of get off on a tangent, but the way the retail landscape as a whole is changing is crazy. And so it's been really like a master's class in business the last few years, because it's constantly changing. And somebody had a presentation that I sat in a few months back, and it was a perfect slide. I thought it made at least it made sense to what was going on. It said the rate of acceleration is accelerating. And it's like literally the more, you just don't know what's going to happen. It's too volatile. And so we've had to really shift our focus from how we want to take products to market and who we want to take them with, right? So there's your place that comes in on your 4Ps. Where do we want to sell our product? And, you know, Dick's Sporting Goods is now able to essentially create a price war with everybody, and then it becomes a health of your business standpoint of how much profit are you willing to give up to keep your products on the shelf. And really Amazon has the ability to do that as well, because they're so big that, you know, they can run people out if they want to, and really that's what they've done across a lot of different industries over the last few years, and will continue to do. But it's just been really interesting to see the shift of, you know, even a Dick's Sporting Goods that's still doing fairly well, their foot traffic in their stores is way down. And they're having trouble getting people into their stores because you can just go on Amazon Prime and it's there in 2 days, it's at your doorstep, right? And you pretty much, at that point, at least from a apparel or footwear standpoint, you kind of know what you're getting, right? So it's caused a lot of shakeup in the market, big time from that standpoint. So it's really been, like I said, a master's class, I think, in business in a lot of ways. So, you know, and you think about where you want to sell your product, and when things start to consolidate, it gets pretty tough. So that's where we've shifted big time in the last few years. So we really rarely spent a whole lot of marketing dollars in Amazon. And the interesting thing about Amazon is, their life cycles are very different on their product. So it changes the way we have to look at how we bring product into the market. And what I mean by that is, you know, I talked about typically it spikes. You introduce a product in the market, it spikes for a while, levels off, right, and then it'll start to taper. Well, Amazon's typically there's like a 6 to 9 month period when you enter a product onto their website that it really doesn't have a whole lot of demand. And so it's almost like an inverted spike in some ways. The longer it stays on their site, then it starts to get better, and it'll track up for a long time. They can show you data, which is amazing. I mean, that's, I think, one of probably the best things about them is everything you go to them, if you want to grow by X percent, you have to spend X amount of dollars, and you have to bring product in this way. And it's really interesting to learn about them. I don't know how much you guys talk about them in class, but it's...
They've started giving away products to people to do. Because like I buy books, if it's only got 4 ratings, I gotta add that's the author and his mother, you know. And, but you know, if it's got 1,000, so companies spend a lot of money to get, you know, hundreds of ratings, because that's how people.
That's a great point.
That's what drives demand.
They have what's called a buying program, and is what they call it, and it's basically it's dollars that the manufacturer has to spend basically in product. So we agree to give them $75,000 or $100,000, whatever it might be, in certain key items of our product, and they help us get it out for free to consumers as long as, and this is a group that is basically well picked and is supposed to put reviews in on your product, which is really just such a different way of thinking about things too, right? So now you're starting to have to seed product out to customers just to get somebody to buy it on Amazon, because they can tell you that even one review on your product on Amazon, even if it's mediocre, will help it sell better than no reviews, because people now trust that sort of open community within the Amazon world and the ecosystem, as they like to call it, that will come in and, oh, okay, well, at least if it's got 3 stars, at least I know what I'm going to get, which is pretty interesting. So it's been, they're like, you could probably teach an entire class on Amazon, I think, at this point, with as much as they've taken over really everybody's landscape. So my wife, even, she's a merchant, she's a buyer at Home Depot corporate, and it's, you know, they're a $100 billion company and rocking and rolling and huge in brick and mortar and doing great, but Amazon's always on their mind, right? And what can they do to increase their e-commerce site, to help people, you know, that maybe can't find something in their store, that kind of endless aisle, I believe they call it, to get people back to the internet. So it's, with every industry now, it seems like no matter what, it's all coming back to e-commerce right now, and it's, everybody's kind of scrambling to make sure that they're ready. So it's really a pretty interesting thing.
So, do y'all have a question? I have a couple from my class, but who's got questions here?
I have a question. So how's it working? How's the culture barrier working with the Japanese and versus here? How does it?
Question. The language barrier tends to be difficult. It's they're very easy. They're very structured, very disciplined, very nice. Going to Japan, I've had a chance to do 7 or 8, 9 times. Is a great trip and easy. It's, you know, they think a bit conservative in the ways that they go about things, and so trying to make them understand the U.S. market and the fact that not only the trends are different, which we've gotten them there, that we've been doing it for long enough, but that, you know, things even like speed to market now, right? And you see it, as things continue to change and the market continues to change, and trying to push them along and get them to speed up with us, because their market is still very different. So Amazon's like kind of there a little bit. You know, they still sell in a very different way than we do over here. They don't have quite the big box retail landscape that we do, that kind of dominates the competitive landscape. So it's almost, you just have to be very patient with them, and typically they will support you very well, I found, but you just have to come across in the right way, and meetings take way longer. I mean, way longer, because it's, you know, you say something, it gets translated, they say something, it gets translated. You may say something for 5 minutes and have something pretty long to say, and it gets translated in 30 seconds, and you're like, there's no way that I was trying to say. And vice versa, that happens sometimes too. They'll talk for 10 minutes, and then the translation you get, and you're like, there's no way that's all that guy said. So, it presents challenges. It does. It's been really, that's the whole, so even on the product side, I had the opportunity to, I haven't done it as much now that I've moved into my new role, to travel overseas, to travel to factories. So I've been in China, I've been in Vietnam and Thailand a number of times, the Philippines. When I was doing ball gloves, we make a lot of baseball and softball gloves in the Philippines, in Manila. And having a chance, I think, to work cross-culturally with those people has been a really, really good experience for me personally, no matter what I may end up doing the rest of my life, just because they operate very differently, and the language barrier tends to be a challenge, and there's just a lot of learning that comes with operating, you know, certain things. So even, for example, in Japan, you know, we could sit in a meeting in the U.S., and if you don't agree with something, you're not gonna have a problem saying that you don't agree with it. But there, you have to be very careful about how you come across and disagreeing with them, because that's just not how they operate. So it's, they almost say, it's a term Seema's saying, it's like, excuse me. And we have one colleague he's one of my closest counterparts there, and he told me when I first got over there, he said, if you feel like you got to blast somebody, just say Seema's saying beforehand, and then you can say whatever you want. He was like, I learned that really fast. So it's been a really good experience from that standpoint. So I don't go as much anymore. It's still really just Japan now that I'm shifted over on sort of the marketing and promotion side of things. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to work internationally. I think it's fun to travel. It gets old a little bit after a while, but when you're going over 3 or 4 times a year, 2 weeks at a time, it can get a little bit old. But I would encourage you guys, if you ever do have an opportunity to get it, you know, take a job that allows you to travel like that. I think will do nothing but positives for, you know, especially as the world gets smaller, right? And we're making all of our products there, and the world just continues to get smaller and continue to be able to reach people across the world easier. So.
I have a question.
Sure.
I've actually gotten to go to Japan twice.
Nice.
So how would you market all your sporting products in Japan? Because I've seen how cartoony and animated a lot of things are. Even their news shows are very colorful, and it almost looks like they're being not genuine, I guess.
Sure.
Because it's so cartoony. Is that how y'all market all of?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been on trains and have seen Mizuno commercials on the screen and that kind of stuff, and it's very much the anime or whatever it's called. Very colorful, very loud. It's it's really very different over there in how they do things for sure. That's an understatement probably. We're stuck on Twitter and Instagram and everything else, and commercials and regular commercials, and trying to make them epic and all these different things. They do things very, very differently for sure. So it's hard to ask for that kind of marketing and promotion help from them because of that, I think, because they think in different ways. So the global marketing side is difficult for us because it's based there.
That's one of the funniest books I ever read. I lived in Chicago, and this is Chinese. It's a Chinese book instead of Japanese, but it was a book for Chinese business people working in the U.S., and it was a book of phrases to use in certain situations. And like one of the situations was, your colleague's son or daughter just graduated from high school. What should you say? And the book said the Chinese person should tell the American, may like the bluebird of happiness drop, and there were all these phrases like no one would use here. And I used to go read that. I wish I'd bought it. I'd go to the bookstore and read it. Well, there are things that, of course, we have the phrase, with all due respect. That's what we say before we say something.
Exactly.
But, it's very...
No offense.
Yeah, no offense.
Right. I'm about to offend you.
Yeah.
Right.
So what are some of the things that you guys are doing to help stay relevant with technology? Because I know a lot of companies are starting to go to artificial intelligence a lot more. I saw with, I think it's either Nike or Adidas, they're starting to use the 3D printer to customize their shoes. So what are you guys doing?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a great question. We don't operate on the same budgets as those guys. We're sort of a mid-tier sporting goods company, so from that standpoint, I mean, the things that Adidas has done in the last few years, and Nike and Under Armour came onto the scene, right? And they were couldn't stop them, and now they're going the other way, and they've lost demand on the consumer. They've spent too much too quick, and for whatever reason, they've just lost touch. And Adidas came in and has blown it out of the water. Especially as it comes to the lifestyle and the shoes and everything. It's been pretty incredible to watch. There was an earnings report that came out today actually from Adidas, and I think they were up 35% over last year in their net earnings, their net income. So I mean, it's just crazy profitable and doing it the right way. So we, from a technology standpoint, some of what we've done, we've actually shifted some of our engineers here in the U.S. To the U.S., I should say. So we've hired for us to try to be more relevant, because we've always kind of had things were stationed in Japan, and we were, sort of we had our product side of things, but we weren't necessarily developing things here. So we've got now a design office for our running footwear in Portland, because that's where all the running shoes are, and all the footwear is really, that's where it all starts. That's where you attract the talent. We moved and opened a Western design office. It's actually as a part of an arm in our office on the apparel side to try to stay more relevant on the Western side. And then we've moved bat engineers and golf club engineers and stuff here as well, so we can kind of have that touch point quickly. We do have a 3D printer in the office. We do not have a 3D printing factory, which is kind of what Adidas is starting to do. It's really difficult because everything is kind of shifting to customization in a lot of ways, and personalization, and getting it quickly. And that's been a challenge, a huge challenge for us on the business front. It's just because we struggle being a little bit smaller. We don't have quite the purchasing power as with the factories and that kind of thing to set those processes up, is to stay as quick as Adidas and what they're able to do. So, I mean, there was a speed factory they opened, or are opening here in the Atlanta area, shortly, that's supposed to do like 500,000 shoes a year, I think. And it's just like, the whole idea is that's going to be like their place to run with trends. So when trends come out, they're going to develop it as quick as they can and put it in that factory and let it go. And they've got one that's based over in Europe as well, where they're headquartered. So the bad answer is we're not staying up with them at this point, but we just continue to try to find ways to keep up in a different way. So we've got to take longer risks than they do, because it takes us a little bit longer to get product in. We have to bring more in at once to try to keep up with those trends. Kind of how we've tried to shift our speed to market is trying to get to where not necessarily the development time shrinks, so we're not necessarily developing a product in 4 months when it's always been 12 months, which typically is a pretty easy development cycle for us, is we don't start sampling until 6 months or 8 months is where we're trying to push it, so that we can make changes like on those final samples. As we get through the process, we can make changes at the end so we can follow those trends. So rather than maybe settling on something really quick, but it's a huge challenge, and it's impressive to see what some of those guys are doing. I mean, they just continue to innovate and do things, and it's trying to keep up with them is tough. Thankfully, I don't do much footwear, so I don't have to worry about it. But it's coming in everything else. I mean, you're customizing everything from bats to batting helmets on our side. The custom glove business is going through the roof. It's just giving players and people and whoever it might be the opportunity to make something their own has really, really taken off.
So is all that like customization and all that, when you see a finished product, when it finally goes to market, I'm sure there's a little bit of middle ground there where you actually send it to a few people and say, what do you think about this or something? Is that?
Yeah, like within the development process? Right, absolutely. So, typically we go through those product briefs that I kind of touched on earlier. I didn't go much further. We got off on a tangent, but, that kind of goes to an artwork phase from that point, which then gets, shown around to as many people as we can. That gets approved, then we go into a sampling stage. So then typically we run 3 or 4 samples over the course of that 12 months. And with each sample that comes in, not only are there things that we see that we need to fix, but we also try to get it out and show it. So, whether it be at baseball and softball tournaments for my industry in particular, or bringing people into the office and trying to find, teams that we sponsor, college teams or high school teams that we sponsor, that kind of thing, and bringing them in and kind of getting their eyes on it and letting them just try to tear it apart, which is, and tell us what's wrong with it and what they would like to see. So that is definitely a big part of it. The hope is that when you take something to market, you've shown it to enough people, it's going to be pretty successful. Unfortunately, we're not, and nobody's immune to this, is not always that good at it, right? So, I think you can look at an Under Armour and Steph Curry's shoe, right? They missed on 3 straight shoes basically for that guy, and that shouldn't happen, you would think, right? Company that big, player that big, they can't miss on that launch, and they missed a couple of times. So it's, nobody's immune to trying to.
When you said they missed, it was just people didn't want to buy that shoe they came out with.
Yeah, I just think people didn't like, I think the one was like a hospital shoe, is what everybody called it. The one that was like all white. Yeah, it's just like, you just kind of scratch your head and go, these guys are really good, but what were they thinking? But,
too much hype, I think.
And that too.
A lot of the shoes.
Right. And they've gotten themselves in trouble in some ways on that too, is how much they've
Over-promising, under-deliver.
They've become less believable, I think, to a lot of people, because they promoted stuff so hard and tried to be so big in the face of everybody. So,
do you think, so Under Armour, they try to market certain athletes like Steph Curry because they thought he was like the next golden man for the NBA. And I know Nike, with soccer, they do Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yep.
And then Adidas is Messi. They do all these big players. And does Mizuno do that? For certain?
Yeah. So really, that's a big part of my job now. Is really overseeing the marketing and the promotions aspect of things. So when I say marketing, I mean what our messaging looks like, what our social strategy looks like. How we tier products when they come to market. So We kind of tier them out A, B, and C in terms of importance, because we don't have as much money to spend on everything, and you really wouldn't want to anyway. So we want to take the products we think are the best that we have to offer and make sure that we push those a lot. And then a big part of that on the promotional side is, for us, is Major League Baseball. So, it gets debated like year in and year out of how much impact does that have. But I think we continue to see that having impactful players on TV does help to drive sales in certain products.
What percentage of players use your gloves, and who's your big competitors?
Yeah, so within the market as a whole, we've got about a 20% share, which puts us in third behind Rawlings and Wilson, who are our two biggest competitors. So it's really Rawlings, Wilson, us, and then everybody else. The next person is kind of a distant fourth. Market share numbers are not very easy to get in our industry, unfortunately, but from what we can gather and data that we do get. Major League Baseball is 10% about of major league players are using our gloves, which is a huge focus of mine actually this year, is to try to flood more gloves out on the major league side. So as the industry kind of went like crazy over the last few years, we really pulled back on our spend, which I think just to kind of huddle up and make sure we kept ourselves in at least as good a position as we could. But we lost, I think, a little traction there, because when you take money away, you can't spend it. People are still going out and spending it. It makes it difficult to compete. So thankfully they've opened up the wallet a little bit for me. So I think it matters, to answer your question. I mean, I think having face type star players you can put yourselves behind, some of those companies I think probably go a little overboard with it. They've got too many guys, but
also risky, like with Under Armour as well.
Sure. I mean, look, I think they paid Steph Curry like $100 million over the course of this contract, and so
that's Under Armour, is it?
Yeah, to this point, but you can see it in their earnings reports and stuff too. They're struggling. I mean, it's they've spent so much promotionally and on marketing. It's been hurtful for them, actually, which is crazy, because they were like the unstoppable one. So, and it's just funny because it's like nobody learns from it, because Adidas is doing the same thing now. So, I remember reading 18 months or 24 months, Adidas was planning to sign 500 NFL and MLB players in the next 3 years. So they're just going to go after, they've gone after everybody. And every agent that I talk to, every play, I mean, it's like, we've already got an offer from Adidas. It's like they went out, they literally just sent an offer out for everybody. So then you have to try to come back and sell them, right? So I'm going to sell you on us, we're going to sell you on service, we're going to sell you on how quality the product is, right? We're not going to sell you on the logo necessarily, because we're just not that kind of company and not that logo. So, which we've had some success at, for sure. But competing with those guys can be a challenge, for sure.
So you say being not really a large company like Mizuno, but being like right up under them is Diamond Sports. Is that on purpose type positioning, or are you guys trying to position yourself sort of as like I don't want to say a niche company, but like a specialty company within?
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So we tried, you don't always execute on things, but sort of a premium performance sporting goods company and on a smaller scale, right? So kind of a mid-tier. Not that I wouldn't love for us to make $4 and $5 billion in revenue a year. That'd probably be pretty fun to deal with. But yes, I would call us more certainly in the specialty, not the niche, but probably more of a specialty type, sort of inner mantra, which everybody has, but gear with purpose, right? And player-driven benefits and gear. Really trying to think in terms of the player and not get too mass merchant manufacturing.
So would you have like longer customer loyalty in that case, since you're like a specialty? Because like I know when I was younger, I would go from like Nike and Adidas just because like the products would be made cheaply.
Yeah.
So I would just switch to another product hoping it would be a lot better.
Right.
And it was the same thing. But recently I've switched to this Italian shoe called Lotto, and those were like probably the best shoes I had, just because they weren't sponsored as much or marked or like.
Sure.
But the quality of it was a lot better than the Nike and Adidas. And so like, and comparing that to the Nike jerseys in basketball now, you see how they're ripping and tearing and stuff like that?
Right.
I think And Nike's protected because it's like such a big logo, but there's not much behind that. It's just, you know, like the jerseys, yeah, the quality has gone down the more they make, so.
Right. That's where we've tried to avoid.
Yeah.
And sometimes you gotta get punched in the gut a little bit to do that, because when everybody else is chasing it and making stuff and making it for less and selling it for more, which is that's the difficult part, right? Where you try to stand your ground and try not to give up any value to the consumer in what you're making. And the problem is that you still have to compete on price. And how do you, at least what's hard is in this world, everybody wants, you know, you even look at the Dick's Sporting Goods, everything's always 20% off. There's always a 20% off coupon in your mailbox. There's always 20% off something online, and we've almost trained everybody who's buying stuff now to look for a deal, right? I do it. I'm guilty of it. But I even work for a company that doesn't believe in it. But, you know, when I go on Amazon and shop, I love it, or wherever it is, right? You love you go to the mall, you love when it's 40% off, we've gotten used to it because it's always happening somewhere. And because it's gotten to that, people continue just to take things out of the product. Little bit, little by little, little by little. Well, they'll never notice, but then when it starts breaking up. So that's why I even mentioned at the beginning, product is king, because at some point the product has to hold up, right? You switched because it didn't.
Yeah.
So at some point, that promotional stuff, all that logo, everything that works, the product still has to reach your expectations and what you need it to do. And it's like finding that fragile line is how you really can take off.
Yeah.
Is that Puma on your shirt?
Yeah.
I didn't know Puma was still. I've been looking at it because Puma was pretty big when I was growing up. When did they start?
A luxury brand, I think.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah,
well, when I was there wasn't any Nike, and it was Adidas, and Puma was sort of the ones chasing Adidas. When was the first glove in pro ball? You know, I used to collect baseball cards. It seems to me I still remember the first Mizuno glove I saw with because it was sort of an inferior brand, and then then within 2 or 3 years, it seemed like every other pro was using it. They are back. Do you know what year that was? I was just wondering.
The early '80s, like probably when we first kind of started in San Fran.
Yeah.
We had that sales team that was rolling out. I mean, we had John Elway and Joe Montana in cleats. In football. Nobody knows that. I mean, it's crazy. There's a poster still in the office. It's literally Joe Montana and Mizuno cleats.
You know what, and I swear, I might be just dreaming this, but when I was a kid, you know, everybody would stick their finger out of the glove, and you just put it on the outside. I don't know if it had any reason, but Mizuno was like the first glove I ever saw that had a hole where you could stick your finger out. And that was his big thing.
He was a thought leader.
Yeah. No, well, you know, that's what Japanese companies.
And then people rip us off.
Japanese companies used to take products and say, how do people really use them? And that's how they got such a, you know, Sony. Yeah. That's what Sony did, and Mizuno and things like that. That's how they succeeded.
And in a lot of ways, we still try to operate that way.
Well, y'all can, as long as Clint will stay, y'all can. But I just want to sort of thank Clint for coming down, and y'all can ask him any questions, you know, one-on-one you want to. But I was just going to end the video just because we found that if we get videos too long, you know, nobody watches. Yeah, past a certain point. But we appreciate it, and you know, there's a lot of people who want to get into sports, you know, like you are right now. Could you give them, like, you know, in 25 words or less, what they should do every day? I mean, I would guess it would be network. You know, find somebody who's in it, find out how they got there. Sure. Meet somebody else who's in it. Sure. Of course, many of our people aren't going to be able to play for the Braves or the Marlins. So, you know,
a unique start.
And not only that, like, let me just say, most of the people who play for the Braves and the Marlins do not have the job Clint has right now. So, you know, there's not, you know, like I was going to ask him how many non-pitcher catcher players play for the Braves and the University of Georgia. Because one of my friends went to the University of Georgia and played for the Braves. He's an old guy. And,
You mean non-pitcher catcher?
yeah, 'cause y'all had a pitcher you traded to, Dodgers. He played at Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Now, do you remember a position player other than yourself?
Well, I was a catcher, but.
Okay. Well, I meant I shouldn't have said that.
Gordon Beckham did.
Oh, did he? Okay, see, I knew there had to be somebody else.
He got traded over.
The guy I played with when I was young was, Jeff Treadway.
Oh,
You
yeah.
remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and, he went.
Absolutely.
But, most guys that I know that played pro sports, didn't stick with it in such a big way and get, product manager jobs and, on this path. So it's more than that. So is it networking? Well, I mean, what would you advice would you give?
Networking I think is a big part of it. For me personally, it was, keeping in contact. It was networking, keeping in contact with the people that I knew from the company, when I was playing. I mean, it's, I think important just to, and I'd be happy to give you guys my contact info and I can try to help set you up with anybody too that you want to talk to. Certainly would love to help anybody coming out of here, being a graduate of here. So, that's a tough question.
Well, I threw out networking. What about curiosity? In other words, most people I know that are successful in specific industries have some curiosity and want to find out, what are they doing to make gloves better? What are they doing?
There's a level of passion, I think, for
passion is probably better.
Indoor sporting goods that you find a lot, certainly within the companies. One thing too, quite honestly, you got to be willing to move. I mean, there's us in Atlanta. There's Infinity, if you guys know that name at all. They do like volleyball and cheerleading and that kind of stuff. But really, if you want to work at Under Armour, you got to be willing to go to Baltimore. If you want to work in Nike, you got to be willing to go to Portland. You want to work at Adidas, you got to be willing to go to Seattle or Portland. That's a big part of it, for sure. If you want to stay in the industry, I found, right? But there's a lot of great cities out there, certainly, to go find and go work at. So, unless you get in on the sales side, that's, kind of the deal where we have a full sales team that's kind of scattered around the country as well as a lot of other ones that can kind of keep you in one specific area where you want to be. Which sounds like you guys can't wait to do.
Well, we'll
sales presentation.
Yeah, they all did it. Emilio did a sales presentation. All did excellent. Well, let's end it here for the tape, and just remember that Clint's GSW online graduate. So for all of my online students, it's great to have people come back to us and. We view him, and he views himself as alumnus of GSW, and we're proud of that. And we appreciate you coming down and giving us some words of advice. So thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, Jonathan, that's the end. I'm supposed to say that. And y'all can continue to ask Clint, as long as he does have to feed dogs today.
Feed dogs.
Yeah.
That's it. But no, it's anything you guys want to talk about, for sure. I mean, it's my job now is, like I said, is more on the marketing and promotion side. So that's been an interesting thing for us. Is even as the retail landscape, as I mentioned, has changed so much, is like a lot of private label things are happening on the retail side. So you're seeing less. Like big brands, sometimes they're trying to sell at a price, and it's almost like retailers are trying to learn how to become manufacturers. And on our side, we're trying to learn how to sell directly to consumers, and how can we reach consumers. And that's been, how do we go about that? How do we increase our own website, which tends to tick people off sometimes. And when you start trying to sell things better on your own website, or we're kind of set up so we have a team side and we have a strategic account, we call it. So it would basically be your Dick's Sporting Goods and your Academy and Amazon, all those guys. Those guys are all in-house. And then we've got a full team side of things that are all scattered across the country, in which we've got 30 sales reps that are going around, and team dealers and little mom and pop shops. But they're also, we've tasked them to go, the kind of term we've been using is own the coach or own the team. Even though we might still be running them through smaller dealers, those dealers are starting to unfortunately go out of business too in a lot of ways. So how do we get out and sell directly to those organizations, which actually makes us more profitable too, because we cut the middle guy out. So that part's been, it's been really interesting to try to figure out where to go, where we want to go sell, how we want to go sell it, and then learn how to do it. We don't really know how to sell direct. We've always used other people, right? We've always sold at wholesale, so that's been an interesting challenge for us. So a lot of opportunity out there, though, for sure, because people still need stuff. You just got to figure out a way to get it to them. And even from our marketing strategy and messaging strategy and everything, is how do we reach the consumer more directly, right? And the easy answer there is social media. I'd be curious to hear you guys' thoughts and how much social media impacts you and what you see of certain brands, or how many of you follow brands on a daily basis. That was a question I had for you guys. Because that's a big push for us, is, and social media is crazy too, because now you can geo-target and boost posts, and we can say, so we're trying to get into the baseball bat business big time, and we've been in the softball side, we're trying to get in the baseball side, and it's a very mature part of the industry. A lot of brands have been there for a long time, and people know them. So our whole strategy on how we're taking it to market is we've partnered with this group called Rapsodo, who makes, if you guys have ever seen like flight tracks and that kind of stuff on golf, it makes like all the launch monitors and everything, is a company that we basically has sold us launch monitors that are more affordable, so we can arm all of our sales guys with them and take it out. And then it's like a Mizuno challenge is kind of what we're creating, where they're going out to the consumers and to the teams in these demos and basically saying, take what bat you're using and take our bat, in which you hit them both, and we're going to show you the data in real time that ours is better, because we know it is, because we test them in-house, right? So it's, rather than taking a traditional marketing strategy of just kind of telling people how great you are, right? We found that doesn't work. Nobody believes us. So how can we show you how good we are? And then use our social channels and our website to blast that out and be really aggressive and bold with it, to where we're basically celebrating wins every time they happen. So we're in the process right now of building that out. But we can even take it a step further. Is, let's say Easton is a big competitor in the bat market. How can we, we can spend probably a surprisingly small amount of money, as in like $100 at times, and we can target everybody who likes Easton on Twitter, right? Everybody who follows Easton, and we can literally send a message constantly about, every time we do it, it's $100 or whatever it might be, $50, and say, look at what Mizuno's doing. Look at the data. Look at Easton getting beat. And we don't even have to, and we know that it's going to people who like Easton, right, to try to convert people over. So social media is is such a powerful tool from our side, but be interested to hear anything that you guys have to say from that standpoint, and how much you do follow brands.
Yeah, I follow brands a lot, but I want to go into the social media marketing industry, so I kind of watch what they do and see how they do it well. So it's always interesting to me to get on Twitter, and you'll see like, you follow one, but then there's a promoted tweet from someone else, and you're like, oh, okay, I see. It's like, all right, maybe I'll look at that. So I look into it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep that in mind when I go buy my next pair of shoes or shirts or whatever it is. So,
who do you guys use more of? You use one social media handle or social media, whatever you want to call it, over another? Do you use more Instagram or more Twitter or more Facebook? Or
I'm more Instagram.
Yeah, more Instagram.
I'm more Twitter.
You are?
I get more like sponsored advertisements on Facebook though. Like I very rarely see it on Instagram. But then when I talk about something, this is really weird to me. I'll talk about a company. I said something about Walmart, and on Instagram I was going through and Walmart popped up.
Yeah.
And I think that's just creepy.
it is.
And it wasn't even, I was like, oh look, there's Walmart. Do you need to go? It was just something like that, and it just started a sponsored advertisement, and I was like.
Did you say you said it or tweeted?
No, like I was in the car, and I said, oh, did you need to go to Walmart or something like that? And
Apple is listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really? That is creepy.
Yeah, they are. You guys are all going to get a Mizuno ad.
Yeah.
I hope you do. That'd be awesome. I doubt it'll happen, but
Wow, that is. So do you think it's from that?
I I do, 'cause like.
You know how people, I kid Mr. Bates about covering her camera, you know, on her thing? Or I go in there sometimes, I said, I've been looking at you for like 30 minutes and all you've been doing is, talking on the phone. And she looks at me, 'cause I just knew she was talking on the phone. And she looks at me really funny, so now she's taping her, she's covered.
That's pretty good. Yeah, it's, even like down to Amazon now, you can pay, you know, for keywords and that kind of stuff, and it's, you know, it's, we actually realized the other day that we had missed on the glove side. If you type in Mizuno baseball gloves, the first glove that pops up is Rollins. They get paid for it. They literally paid for the name Mizuno. And they paid, and it's not even, like, we could go in and bid like 2 cents and we'll win it because it's our name.
Yeah.
But we haven't done it. So there's like 3 or 4 Rollins gloves that pop up first, and then you get the Mizuno stuff.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, just start to pay attention to that stuff as you like look for things online. It's amazing. But, and then all the like search engine optimization, all the SEO stuff with Google and everything that you can do where, you know, you all know, right? You look a product up and then you go to a completely different website the next day and that exact thing pops up on the sidebar, and it's creepy. It really.
Y'all heard Bill Harris today talk about Google. We have the only fair trade, if you know what fair trade coffee is, the only fair trade roaster in Georgia is in Americus.
I did the project.
Oh yeah, that's right. So Bill was saying how they used to be, if you typed in fair trade or organic coffee, they would be the first one up when they first started.
Yeah.
And now they're on page 4.
Wow.
Because they can't afford, you know, that when they talk about the Russians, you know, on Facebook or whatever, some guys just like he making fun of it. He said the Russians spent $100,000 on Facebook. That may sound like a lot, you know, 10 years ago, but now $100,000 is nothing, you know, to you know, that's just them spending $100,000 so that they can say they affected the election. How much do y'all spend on social media? Do you have any? I mean, and advertising.
Well, social in general, we're spending, you know, $100,000.
So that's not very much, right?
No.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can do some things and boost some things for $100, it can take you a long way.
Yeah.
Versus trying to run a commercial, which is going to cost you way
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I would have even guessed you'd be doing more.
We did. We struck a deal with, so we have one of our bigger partnerships that we struck is a long-term deal with the Atlanta Braves. So we're the official sporting goods, official baseball gear of the Atlanta Braves, which doesn't get us anything player-wise, but it's, so we have a sign on the wall. We've got, actually, I don't know if any of you guys have been in the Braves Stadium at all, but Mizuno glove experience when you walk in the Chop House gate, there's actually 2 of them. But we were looking for ways, like how can we just kind of organically get gloves on kids' hands? And so we created this kiosk that houses 500 gloves across both of them, where you can rent it for free. You come in and check a glove out for the game, and we just take your credit card and it puts like $1 hold on it. You go use it for the game, bring it back. Once we check it back in, it takes $1 off. Has been pretty cool with that partnership. But we did, along with that, we actually were able to cut a kind of a smaller deal with Fox Sports South to get some in-game content and one commercial that kind of played up that glove experience station. But other than that, you won't see us on TV, except in Japan. Serious performance.
Yeah. I want to, next time maybe you can bring us some Japanese ads. Or maybe he can send you one. Why don't you try to send her?
Yeah, I can do that.
I mean, you can like.
You probably Google them and find them, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because I didn't understand anything, but just watch, like I would walk around and it was really just cartoons. Like
a lot of cartoons.
Like here,
everything's like
sometimes
a game
we're
show.
like, that's exactly what
kind of
it is.
feel like it's
Yeah, even the news, like the morning
Quick and
news,
loud.
it was like the game show, and I was like, what did we watch? I was like eating breakfast, like, what is this? I didn't know what I was watching.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna Google that or go on YouTube and try to find it when I get home.
But it really matches what their TV channels are. A lot of like game show, talk show stuff that just is kind of crazy and comical, and then baseball. I think it's not baseball, typically, but very, very different over there for sure.
I remember how offended we were when they kept talking about their, I forgot his first name, you know, OH, and he held the professional home run record, because he had hit more than Hank Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
And how we were just like, that doesn't count, you know. So I just remember vividly just hating the guy because he claimed to, you know, have this record.
Yeah, that guy's super famous over there.
Oh, yeah. What's his first? I can't remember. I used to know it
Don't
well.
put me on the spot there.
Yeah. But his last name is OH, and he was their first superstar baseball player.
Right.
And he did really well. Well, guys, I know some of you have got to leave, and Clint's probably, so thanks so much, and thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.